Have you seen this in 30-odd years?
I probably have online.
And it's interesting. Have you read it in the past ever years?
No.
I mean, it's a massive feature,
story.
isn't it?
Yeah.
In June 1985, New York Magazine published a story titled Hollywood's Brat Pack, written by journalist David Bloom. It was intended to be a profile of actor Emilio Estevez. At the time, his career was on fire, and coincidentally, his new movie was called St. Elmo's Fire, about a group of recent college graduates struggling to find their place in the adult world.
There are several quintessential moments in a man's life: losing his virginity, getting married, becoming a father, and having the right girl smile at you.
Estevez had also starred in the then recent hit The Breakfast Club, about a group of high school students who break the rules and bare their souls during a day of detention.
My God, are we gonna be like our parents?
Not me. Ever.
Legendary writer-director John Hughes thinks the movie struck a chord with teenage audiences by not dumbing down the material. Quote, "People forget that when you're 16, you're probably more serious than you'll ever be again. You think seriously about the big questions."
When you grow up, your heart dies.
Who cares?
I care.
The Breakfast Club, along with Fast Times at Ridgemont High and The Outsiders, ushered in a new era of teen movies that defined the 1980s. For the first time, young people were being taken seriously on the silver screen, and the talented group of actors who brought those characters to life became superstars. They were young, rich, famous. The world was their oyster. That is, until the Brat Pack cover story came out. So what exactly was inside this infamous article? Let's take a look. David Bloom's so-called profile of Emilio Estevez widened its focus to include other actors who were in his orbit. It opens at the Hard Rock Cafe in Hollywood. The author joined him and his St. Elmo's co-stars Rob Lowe and Judd Nelson for a night on the town. He writes about the parade of beautiful women who visited their table in the VIP section. Years before Bonfire of the Vanities, these were the original Masters of the Universe. Here's where Bloom coins the famous phrase, quote, "This is the Hollywood Brat Pack. It is to the 1980s what the Rat Pack was to the 1960s. A roving band of famous young stars on the prowl for parties, women, and a good time." These guys work together too. They've carried their friendships over from life into the movies. They make major movies with big directors and get fat contracts and limousines. And most important, they sell movie tickets. The term stuck and came to define 1980s teen and young adult themed movies, but the ones at the center of it are The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire. And generally, the accepted members of the Brat Pack are the stars from one or both of those movies. The list of course includes Estevez, Nelson, and Lowe, who were prominently featured in the article. And then there's Molly Ringwald, who starred in The Breakfast Club and Pretty in Pink, Andrew McCarthy, who co-starred with Ringwald in Pretty in Pink and then starred in St. Elmo's Fire, plus Demi Moore, who co-starred with McCarthy in St. Elmo's Fire and then also co-starred with Rob Lowe in About Last Night. And then there's Ali Sheedy, who starred in The Breakfast Club and St. Elmo's Fire. And finally, we have the Black Sheep, Anthony Michael Hall, who starred with Ringwald in 16 Candles and The Breakfast Club and then went on to be in a bunch of other 80s movies like Weird Science. So that's the basic Brat Pack. You would think being compared to the Rat Pack wouldn't be so bad, because those guys were pretty cool. But in the article, Bloom implies their success is undeserved. Quote, "What distinguishes these young actors from generations past is most of them have skipped the one step towards success that was required of the generation of Marlon Brando and James Dean. Years of acting study." Bloom writes about them like they're entitled, spoiled, well, brats.
What would I do for $1 million? I guess I'd do as little as I had to.
There's a detailed anecdote about Estevez using his star power to score free tickets to a movie. He wanted to see the movie Lady Hawk at Man's Village Theater in Westwood, so he called up the manager and explained who he was, and they let him in. Bloom snarkily comments, "It would not behoove one of the brats to fork over $6 to the industry that made him a star to begin with." The tone of the piece is catty and mean-spirited. At one point, Bloom quotes an anonymous actor from St. Elmo's Fire who trashes fellow comrade Andrew McCarthy. Quote, "He plays all his roles with too much of the same intensity. I don't think he'll make it." The Brat Packers save their praise for themselves, Bloom writes. So not only are they entitled and spoiled, but they're also backstabbing. Andrew McCarthy says the Brat Pack label affected his life and career in profound ways. He feels he was cut down by the article just as his star was rising.
Are we doing a disservice to the individuality of you and the rest of the young group that by calling you the Brat Pack and by sort of putting in one group and stereotyping all of you as young actors who've made it and who now sort of control a lot of Hollywood?
I wouldn't say control, but
are part of the sort of...
Well, I think it's easy to just group people together in any level. So, it's just an easier way to get a handle on people.
In the new documentary Brats, McCarthy explores what the infamous moniker really means by talking with fellow members of the pack. It's part interview and part therapy session. First stop is Emilio Estevez, who's still haunted by the article decades later.
I had had some experience and had done some press, but nothing to the extent of like a real sort of a profile, which made me uncomfortable. It was naive of me to think that this journalist would in fact be my friend. I think the most upsetting about it is because I had already seen a different path for myself, and I felt derailed.
After its publication, he feels he was perceived as an industry lightweight, and that he and his co-stars were now kryptonite to each other. There's a fascinating discussion about a canceled movie called Young Man with Unlimited Capital. It was supposed to feature both of them, but Estevez admits that he killed the project so that he wouldn't have to appear alongside another Brat Packer. In 2020, Estevez told The Guardian, "That term will be on my tombstone. It's annoying because Brad Pitt, George Clooney, and Matt Damon have worked together more than any of us have. We just made 2 movies and somehow it morphed into something else." Next up in the documentary is Ali Sheedy, who recalls the schadenfreude that followed in the wake of the article, that people took great joy in knocking them down a few pegs at the height of their fame.
I started feeling a kind of weird vibe in the room if I went in to meet somebody or audition for something.
We worry that you're going to be spoiled. We worry that you're getting too much too soon.
It felt like it's just like, let's just write off everybody's lives and their experiences and their work. Let's just, it's just getting all sort of written off.
It felt 100% like that.
And then there are stars like Rob Lowe and Demi Moore who were able to shrug it all off and have a healthy perspective. Moore says, quote, "I look at everything as happening for us, not to us."
The event is the event. What we make it mean is the value that it all of a sudden has. Does that make...
Yeah, I gave it so much
You gave it
power.
so... Exactly. When you really look at that now, we thought we were like...
And of course we thought we were like, yeah.
So grown up
Yeah.
and like, but we were babies.
But, okay, Andrew.
Like Moore, Rob Lowe was able to not take the criticism so personally. These days, he's able to laugh about it, remember the good times, and recognize the cultural significance of the Brat Pack.
Did you like the label at first? I mean, I don't recall anyone liked it.
No one liked it, and look, I don't want to come off seeming like I'm so Pollyanna that I don't realize or didn't know at the time what a fucking disaster and how mean-spirited and what an attempt that was to minimize all of our talents. I get why it happened, there's just too many of us. So there had to be a catch-all name, and Brat Pack's a good name. These young actors, and these movies about these young actors, and these people making them, like John Hughes and so forth, are gonna start to lead the business in a way where there are gonna be TV shows like Glee, and there's gonna be
look at Friends.
The CW. There's gonna be all of these things that we now take for granted don't happen without the Brat Pack. They just don't.
Is it a coincidence that Demi Moore and Rob Lowe went on to have the biggest careers? Maybe, maybe not. Leah Thompson also has a positive spin. She's considered a Brat Pack adjacent actor for appearing in 80s teen movies like Some Kinda Wonderful and Back to the Future, the latter having a whole category of its own.
In my opinion, it was kind of the end of old Hollywood. I mean, even the idea, the Rat Pack, Brat Pack, was trying to like hold on to the last vestiges of old Hollywood, and you guys were involved.
Well, that's kind of cool.
The centerpiece of the documentary, however, is McCarthy's interview with David Bloom himself, the man who set this whole pop culture juggernaut into motion. This is the first time the two ever met. Bloom explains that he never claimed to be anybody's friend, but contrary to what people believe, he did actually like the guys.
It's hard to explain, but I didn't think at the time, ugh, these brats, at all.
His goal, first and foremost, was to write an entertaining article, and he sort of worked backwards after coming up with the catchy title.
The night before this all happened, I had gone out to dinner with some friends who happened to be in LA journalists. We had a very large meal at this dinner, and this guy from People magazine, who's a very funny writer, named Alan Richmond, referred to us as the Fat Pack, which I thought was very funny. So at some point while I was in LA, I was driving from one place to another, and that joke reemerged in my brain. And I said, Brat Pack. And then I thought, a light bulb has gone on, and I now have a title. I thought, well, this is fun. It's fun. I just thought, oh yeah, and Emilio did that thing where he got the cheaper ticket, and I don't know, just start listing all the things. Yeah, they're brats, it's funny.
Bloom stands his ground when reacting to accusations that his profile was too mean.
Well, one or two people were like, wow, that's like really mean,
I thought it was pretty like, whoa.
No, you referred to it in I think that Today Show interview as scathing. That was the word.
I thought it was, yeah, I did think it was scathing. Didn't you?
I mean, I guess in retrospect, yes. At the time, no. I was proud of my creation of the phrase. There were a couple of things in the article that were just plain old not nice, and I'm sure I should have been scolded by somebody, and I was. I was just trying to be funny, and I actually think I hope I won't sound too arrogant by thinking that I might have succeeded.
There's a funny moment when Bloom brazenly takes credit for St. Elmo's Fire being a box office hit.
Well, St. Elmo's Fire became, and again, it became a hit. And ultimately, I think I should have gotten more credit for helping that along. Honestly, no, I'm serious. Controversy sells.
David Bloom makes it clear he has no regrets, and their conversation ends on a note that's somewhat upbeat.
I have this sort of affection for you.
No,
in this way that, we
totally understand.
We have, even though we've never met and never been in contact, we have something, we share something.
And I actually think you've actually found the emotional beating heart of the story, which is, that we all shared something. Who would have ever thought we'd even be here?
Yeah.
It's crazy, but that's cool, I think.
Thank you.
After the interview's over, McCarthy can't help but throw out one more question. It's as if he's been waiting 40 years to confront this guy.
But do you think you could have been nicer? Seriously.
I mean, it's collateral damage, in my view, to making the point that here was a bunch of people that had become very famous and popular, and I'm calling them a Brat Pack, and here's how
But there was collateral damage.
Oh, yeah. I guess I feel like, sticks and stones.
It's a cold response, and an honest one. I think McCarthy appreciated that. It's clear how cathartic this documentary is for everyone involved. Even Emilio Estevez finds closure and accepts that he's inexorably linked to his 80s co-stars forever.
What is going to happen to us on Monday? When we're all together again? I mean, I consider you guys my friends. I'm not wrong, am I? No.
Two notable people who declined to appear in the film are Judd Nelson and Molly Ringwald.
Oh.
Andrew McCarthy told Entertainment Tonight, quote, "The Brat Pack is an ongoing relationship. Some people are at different places in their lives to want to or not want to talk about it. Molly Ringwald shared her thoughts on the subject in an interview with Conan O'Brien a decade after the article was published.
I was never really sure what the Brat Pack was, to be honest. I mean, the phrase was coined by a clever writer when he went out to dinner with, I think, Judd Nelson and Rob Lowe and Emilio Estevez, I think.
Right.
And then sort of everybody that was in those movies became a Brat Pack member. So.
Right, there was a time like in the, I guess it's the mid-'80s, where that's all you would read about is the Brat Pack went here and did this. The Brat Pack ate a sandwich together. The Brat Pack went swimming somewhere.
Well, you know, we did a couple movies together, but I was quite a bit younger. So when they were going out, you know, drinking and, you know, doing crazy stuff, I was going to school, so.
Okay.
So.
And you think there'll ever be a big reunion where they get you guys are all in your 80s or something and they get you guys together and you...
It could happen. You never know.
Here's hoping. The saddest part about the whole thing to me is that not only did they feel like they couldn't work together anymore, but that they couldn't even remain friends.
I hate it. I hate having to go along with everything my friends say.
And as an interesting side note before we go, Molly Ringwald's name is not mentioned at all in the story. Not one time. Yet she's considered the queen bee of the Brat Pack. Go figure.
Okay, let me ask you a few questions.
What are your thoughts on the documentary? And do you think the article was as bad as it was made out to be? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Of course. Oh, man, nice to see you.
It's
And
great
we're
to
both
see you.
wearing the same shirt.